I'd like to call the Board of Public Works meeting of April 25th, 2017 to order. First thing to ask if anybody is recording this other than LCAT.
Shirley Tancredi for the minutes.
Thank you, Shirley. Next is to review and approve the minutes of the April 10th meeting.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes of the April 10th meeting.
I'll second that. Any discussion?
No
All in
discussion.
favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next, we'll go right into Bob and the superintendent's report.
Okay, the first item I have today, and the only handout I have today, is a tabulation of the bids that were received last Wednesday for the Maple Shade water main replacement, Maple Shade Avenue, and that's going from North Main Street to Elm Street. We received 7 bids from a low of $446,000 to a high of $595,000, with the low bidder and the second low bidder being extremely close, within $94 of each other. So although there's a very wide spread amongst the 7 bidders, feel pretty confident that we have a real price with the apparent low bidder, which is a firm named GEG Construction based in Springfield, Mass. Mr. Esposito and I actually met with staff from GEG today. I had worked with them probably half dozen years or so ago when they were somewhat just starting out, so I didn't have a good sense of what their manpower and equipment and really ability to execute a project like this might be, so I wanted to make certain we could kick the tires a little bit. So we brought their staff in today and chatted with them. I think got good impression in terms of who they are, how they work, what their capabilities are. They're not a large firm. They have 14 staff people. They have 6 excavators of varying sizes, a number of dump trucks. It's not a big job, so it doesn't require huge effort, but it requires the ability to put a couple of crews on the job to get it done in the time period that is necessary to get it done. I did call references as well. They provided a number of different references. City of Worcester, they're finishing up a water main project right now. They have very good things to say about the firm. I spoke with a couple of engineering firms that have worked with them recently on projects in Buckland, Mass, Coleraine, and Athol, and again had all positive references. So based on a combination of that, it's my plan to recommend to the town manager that we award the contract to GEG with a price that is really where it needs to be. This project, since it was delayed from last year, we probably have seen pricing escalate maybe 3 to 5% over this last year, so we don't have a lot of contingency available in the budget. We have enough, but as Roy and I were talking about today, there really aren't any surprises on that job. We know...
You did the ledge.
Yeah. We know where groundwater is, we know where ledge is, we know where every utility on the project is. It's a fairly straightforward project in that the water main is going to run right down the middle of the street with no direct conflicts on the water main itself. The services we'll have to work with, but we have already located all the water services. We found most of the sewer services. We advised the contractor in advance that they're going to have to lower the water main in some locations because the sewer line's relatively shallow. So to make certain that they can get the water main below the sewer services and not have conflicts. So all that really, I think we've tried to nail in advance. So I feel comfortable. We don't have a lot of contingency available, but I think we have good price and good contractor, and we'll be getting ready to go ahead with that.
Sounds good.
And they know how important it is to get it done.
Absolutely, yes. So essentially, they'll work on a detailed schedule. We talked about it a bit today. They may decide to mobilize, wait until July 4th, and then hit it all after July 4th. We do allow them to start some activity before the 4th, providing they get everything cleaned up and completely patched and paved, etc., before the 4th. So I think they're going to think that out and decide whether or not starting to mobilize early and maybe doing some test pit work and some other types of things might make some sense, so they can go at it hard after the 4th of July. But they are aware of it. I did want to note too that we did all the design work on that project, and you haven't seen, but we put together a full set of plans and specifications similar to what the town might have traditionally hired a consulting firm to put together, and probably saved about $30,000 in a project of this size. So it's I think it was well worth the effort.
That's a good thing.
I did note, as the board knows, and probably everybody, that might be watching this video knows that we did send a public notice out last week. It started to hit the streets on Tuesday through Saturday. In addition, we published in the legal notice in the Springfield Republican a notification regarding exceedance that we had of one parameter, something known as total trihalomethanes, largely due to some increases in chlorine levels that the Springfield Water and Sewer Commission has made, as well as some treatment challenges they were having during the third and fourth quarters of this last year. We've only received a couple of calls in response to that, so I think it's some evidence that people understand. We provided enough of an explanation in the public notice that went out that understand that this is likely a one-time occurrence and is not a significant concern, and are moving on from it.
Yeah, I read it. I thought it was very well read.
Did want to note that the Denslow Road pumping station, which is one of our mid-sized pumping stations, we had some electrical issues at the station starting last Friday afternoon, I believe it was. Our station went on to generator operation and was on generator operation for most of the weekend. We ultimately had National Grid involved. National Grid thought that the problem might have been the old transformers that were on the pole next to the station, and given the age of the transformers, they decided to move ahead and replace the transformers. They did that. The problem with the station tripping continued, and we've ultimately isolated it to the main breaker in the pumping station. We've been able to make some temporary adjustments to the main breaker so that it doesn't trip unless it's extremely heavily loaded, but we have located a replacement breaker, and we'll be installing the replacement breaker within the next day or two.
Does that generator run a test cycle once a week, or?
Yeah, we're running that typically every week automatically, and then we run it on load typically once a week.
So because
excuse me, once a month with load.
I went by there Thursday night and
Yeah.
it was running on a generator, and I just assumed that it was running a test cycle.
Yeah, it may have been the beginning of this tripping issue that we were having with the starter there. There is some adjustments you can make on the starter to make them less prone to tripping, but it's really a temporary adjustment that we can make and that we need to. The starter we checked is we had upgraded that station about 10 years ago, so it's about a 10-year-old starter, a little bit sooner than we'd like, but it's not, it's not unheard of to have some issues that soon, particularly with some of the newer equipment that is actually more it does a better job of protecting the equipment, but it's more prone to failure itself because of some of the protections that are built into the starter. So we'll have that, back. It is running without any problem. We had no overflows, no backups, anything like that. The generator did what it was supposed to do. And we had a staff person come in periodically over the weekend to refill the generator, keep it running, keep the fuel in it, make certain everything was okay. Also, I did want to let the board know that will be going after this meeting to the town council meeting tonight with the town accountant and the town manager to present the draft water and sewer budget to the council. And also, part of that is, I believe that the town manager will be presenting the items that she's recommending for funding for capital through the water and sewer enterprise funds this year. And that will include replacement of dump truck number 50 that we've talked about in the past, backhoe 17, which has now been out of commission for probably going on 3 to 4 months because we are facing a $15,000 or $20,000 repair bill that we're at the point of diminishing returns, and just decided to basically park it and, as needed, bring in a rental piece of equipment, which we've done in periodically at much less cost, and truck number 13 as well. Not part of the water and sewer budget, town manager is also recommending capital funding for phase 2B of the landfill closure. Phase 2 is the portion that we've now had the trees cleared for, and it was funded. The plan was to fund it during 2 different budget cycles. So phase 2A, it's one phase, but funding it in 2 pieces. The first piece of that was funded at the fiscal 17 town meeting, and the second piece will hopefully be funded by the town council this year to carry us into fiscal 18.
And when we need to have that completed by?
the majority of the capping work by the end of this calendar year, and everything cleaned up and basically buttoned up by 18. So we expect most of the work to be happening, most of the heavy work to be happening this year, but then the ability to finish some of the additional activities and get everything stabilized through next year. They also, town manager is recommending some small electrical improvements at the high school, replacing 3 electrical panels, not the main switchgear, but some of the sub panels that Bruce has recommended for replacement. We have had on a capital plan for a number of years, as the board knows, the energy management system at the library and the fire department, which we have every other building in town tied into the automated energy management system right now, and that is being recommended for funding. We are requesting funding for upgrading the control equipment at the North Main Street and Harkness lights, not completely replacing the lights and the signal heads, but the control equipment within the box, and upgrading some of the pedestrian controls at that intersection, and that she will be recommending as well. 2 other things. One, finally, the Pine Knoll Administrative Building, where we received funding for partial reconstruction of that building several years ago, and the second phase of completing the interior of that building really had been on hold for a number of years waiting for funding. That is part of the recommendation this year. And then lastly, our request by the school department that we will be performing, or at least managing and performing, will be security upgrades at the doors at the Maple Shade School. That one is being proposed to be phased over multiple years, where funding would be appropriated this year, and then next year and the following year, I believe, over a 3-year cycle to bring the exterior doors up to current standards in terms of security and entrance control systems at school buildings. So it's a good list of capital projects this year. Some projects that we've been looking for funding for some time. Along with, and then again, as the board knows, going hand in hand with the water and sewer budget is the water and sewer rate setting. Because it's the rates that allow the budget to be paid for, basically, under the Water and Sewer Enterprise Fund. It's completely self-supporting. I expect at the next Board of Public Works meeting to present the information I typically present regarding water and sewer rates with recommendations. The town charter specifies that the Board of Public Works is to recommend to the town council rates for adoption by the town council. So my goal would be at the next meeting to provide enough information to the Board of Public Works so the board can make a recommendation to the council, and then the council, could hopefully act upon that recommendation in the future. It's a little bit later than typical this year. The good thing is we have a little bit more flexibility with the timing of council meetings versus town meetings, so the timing isn't really an issue. As long as rates get adopted before the end of the fiscal year, everything is fine. Overall, having gone through a lot of the work right now, it looks promising to be able to keep our water rate fairly steady this year. We have bumped it up the last couple of years. Our sewer rate at this point may have to get bumped up a bit because we've held that steady now for a couple of years. So the good news is that we had a very good revenue year in fiscal 16, with the dry conditions we had last year, and that very good revenue year is going to continue into fiscal 17, even if it rains for the rest of the next 3 months.
I hope not.
We sold an awful lot of water last July, August, September, October, etc. So that will be allowing us to fund the items that I talked about here through current revenue, including the dump truck, without having to go out and bond the dump truck. It basically had a revenue that has come in excess of our projected revenue as a result of it being a very dry year and very high water consumption. It's always better to fund out of current money if you can, because there's no cost to that. The next item I had is the Chapter 90 road funding status. The town did receive a letter at the end of March, either end of March or beginning of April, indicating that The governor's budget has a recommendation for award of $200 million statewide, and that the town's allocation of that would be $581,185 for fiscal 18. The state budget has not yet been adopted at this point, so we can't move forward with those funds until that happens, and obviously can't move forward with expending the funds until fiscal 18 begins. The other thing that will slow the process down a little bit this year is that Chapter 90 funds, the town receives Chapter 90 funds through a contract that the town executed with Mass DOT 10 years ago, and that contract's on a 10-year cycle. Basically spells out the terms and conditions in which the state and the town agree to work together on funding. That contract expires at the end of fiscal 17, and Mass DOT is working on a new version of that contract that they're beginning out to cities and towns that they haven't yet finalized. So that'll have to be executed, as well as the state budget being appropriate or being voted upon before those funds are available.
How does this 581 compare to last year?
It's pretty close, within a couple of $1,000s of last year. It's not, 2 years ago we had a very good year because we received an additional 50% funding, plus there was wasn't Chapter 90 money, but it was the outside money, the pothole funding, that was another $86,000 on top of that. So we got a lot done during those years. Cities and towns are pushing hard to go back to that $300 million, but the state legislature and the governor at this point aren't going there.
Every town and city needs it.
Right. They have done some things that are beneficial to some communities. They've created a small bridge funding program. Unfortunately, isn't very beneficial to us because we don't have any small bridges that we own or are responsible for. So it isn't a program that we can tap into, but they've taken some of that additional money and put that into the bridge program, so it can benefit some communities. And at this point, I'm still targeting and working actually on documents to repave Kibbe Road through combination of, some portions of it will likely be a straight overlay where we have a pretty good crown on the roadway and we don't have much of a drainage or water issue as we get off of Summers Road and come around the hill there. We clearly have some issues with drainage there, and we want to try to intercept as much of that drainage as we can before it gets into the road cross-section. So we'll likely be putting some under drains in there, and we'll likely also be doing some of what's known as the gutter milling, where we mill the edges of the street so we can build up a steeper profile across slope to the roadway, so we do a better job of keeping the water on the side of the road where it does less damage versus flowing across the street. And the other project that I believe this funding will be adequate for, in addition to setting aside money for crack sealing, which we have tried to do the last couple of years. I had been talking about working on Denslow Road and stepping back a little bit further at this point. Where my thoughts are right now, if you're familiar with the condition of Mill Road, Mill Road is a pretty heavily traveled cut through to Hamden, and is a road that's in pretty tough shape. Denslow is pretty bumpy, but the road itself is solid, whereas Mill is falling apart.
A lot of water under there.
And a lot of water there as well.
Yeah.
Right. So that's where we stand with Chapter 90. I've talked in the past about a couple openings we have. We still have a skilled worker opening. We did make a offer to a strong candidate from a local community. I won't say not an adjoining community, but a local community today, and we're optimistic that he'll decide to join us. Has some good capabilities, experience. We have a number 2 candidate who also has some good capabilities, so we're optimistic that out of one of those 2, we have some good choices there. And that is all I have. And Mr. Fenney isn't here today, so he's given me a list of activities, if you'd like, where you give an update on. In terms of general building maintenance, Bruce is reporting that all of our spring preventative maintenance activities are underway right now. Those are all the filter changes around the schools. Cleaning condensers is going to be coming up in mid to late May, depending on what the pollen conditions are. Once things clean up, we'll get in and do the cleaning of the condensers. We are moving up to Pine Knoll now to clean up the pool and get the pool ready for opening at the end of June. We are also getting into all the buildings at Pine Knoll and getting those buildings ready for opening. We are still waiting for resolution of funding for the shower facility at Pine Knoll, but we're confident that at least as a minimum, we will be able to move forward with a single men and women shower as a kind of a stopgap measure as a minimum in order to get the camp open. So that's the plan right now. If we can't resolve any additional funding issues at this point, we'll at least move forward with the minimum that's necessary to get the camp open. And then perhaps if funding becomes available, then in the fall, go forward with the more extensive renovations of the shower facility. Parks report. Parks folks, as well as some of Roy's guys, have been working on fields over the past couple of weeks. We've got everything in pretty good shape. We have to do top dressing at 3 locations at this point, and then we'll be all done at this point. So we finished up Birchland, we worked up at Heritage, and essentially rebuilt one of the fields at Heritage, Memorial Field at Heritage, and we had to, as Bruce had talked about previously, due to one of the league that the town had been involved in essentially going out of business, the rec department had to go to a different league, and that different league had different dimensional requirements of the field, so we had to move bases, move pitchers' mounds, things like that. But all that activity is done at this point.
In irrigation?
And irrigation as well at Memorial, yeah.
Do those leagues pay the rec department?
I do believe that there is revenue that's brought in there. The rec department does a good job in helping to fund the improvements that we make. They have bought a lot of the field clays that we put in, for instance, at the softball skinning. That was all that material was paid for by the rec department. School department is helping to pay for some of the material up at the high school varsity field, and the rec department is paying for the other pieces of it. So it generally, the work that we do, we typically provide the labor, and either the school department or the rec department provides the materials to get the work done.
We did fertilizing, right?
We did fertilizing. We've got the first step completed on March 31st and April 13th, and Bruce says we're going ahead with the second step now, scheduling it for May 12th and May 19th. Yeah. So we're working hard to try to put more time and attention and effort and money into the fields to keep them in good condition. That then leads into the fact that we've already started to mow the fields. So the downside of fertilizing is that you have to then mow the grass.
The grass grows.
So they did start cutting on Monday of this week, so for the first time this year, and it'll continue throughout from now through October or so, most likely. Town hall renovations are going well. We'll be wrapped up this week on all the punch list items. All the major work is done. We're doing some repainting of, for instance, the Human Resource Director's office and a couple of other things like that. But everything will be wrapped up and we'll be out of there. K&M Fire Protection, who's doing the sprinkler work, has completed the first floor, the second floor, and part of the basement. They'll be finishing that up, and then next week going into the third floor in the attic area. You'll notice that some of the sprinkler piping in the town hall, particularly in the second floor, is exposed, and that's in areas where there was a direct conflict with some of the HVAC equipment and duct equipment, where we couldn't fit a sprinkler line inside the ceiling. We will, down the road at some point, be priming and painting all of that, but for the time being, you'll see it's just the bare
dry
steel
system?
It's a combination. There's 3 different systems. There's a Ansel system for the server room. There is a wet system for most of the town hall, with the exception of the attic. So the attic is a dry system. Everything else is wet.
Okay.
You said we're done in the town hall, or we will be done this week.
By the end of this week.
Is that the end of the phase, or are we pulling out? We still have some things to do, and we'll be back in the fall.
We'll be back in the fall. We still have the restrooms to do.
Right.
And the plan is that the 2 restrooms that haven't been renovated, the ladies' room will be converted to a unisex bathroom to then free up space, that the men's room will then be turned into a small kitchen break room type space for town hall employees, because there's no place right now where employees can sit down and eat lunch, or to put food or anything like that. So it's not going to be a very big space, but at least it's going to provide a little bit of space that staff won't have to necessarily keep food and everything at their desks and eat at their desks. To that end, the men's room, as part of the sprinkler work, actually has been taken offline at this point because there's some penetrations that had to be cut through the wall of the men's room, and at that point it felt it was better to just take it offline versus trying to make some temporary repairs in the tile work and then take it back offline in the fall. And we checked in with all the town departments, and everybody in town hall was fine with going forward at the moment with just 2 ladies' rooms and 1 men's room with the new one that we had renovated last year. And last item, vehicle report. Again, all the preventative maintenance work is up to date on schedule, and Bruce is working on getting his quantities together for bidding for filters and oil materials and other types of things for fiscal 18. So that'll be coming together shortly. We've been, for the last 2 years now, been buying in bulk and competitively bidding out all that equipment. And that is all I have.
Okay. Roy?
Good afternoon. As you know, we have a new foreman. I've been putting him to the test. With winter over, he's been repairing the berm, hot patching, luminance seeding, taking care of a lot of the plow damage. So he's doing very well using the new work order system. We're also continuing to do the catch basin cleaning and inspection reports. Tony's been repairing basins as fast as he can. We've been adding some millings, like on Allen Street where it's paved, and there was quite a drop off. So we added some millings there to protect the road. We've also started to get some of the sander bodies off the trucks and getting those ready for next year. So he's treating them too and make sure they're all repaired. So next year we won't have such a big a problem trying to get them all set for winter. Let's see. Where we started to get the street sweeper going.
Well, I see that.
So he's doing all the main roads. I hope to have the whole town done, and then keep the mains up to snuff as needed. So that's they put all new brushes in the winter time. Got it all set, so it's working very well now. Mr. Pope has been working on the irrigation systems, getting those all up and running. All the cemeteries, all the bubblers are on. We got to do some work to some of the irrigations because they moved some of the ball field, and some of that it's not real easy to move over. So, but he's doing a good job getting that all done. We're cammering, sewer and the storm drain, especially any streets that might be paved and worked on this year. All that information is all going into the collector. With the new work order system, he's also, we're adding pictures and everything to that system, so it's all working out really well, because now it's going to have some trends. So next year or the following years, if you're working on a basin or berm or something, you can looking back and see if it's an ongoing issue, maybe do something about it. Let's see, markouts, we've been getting like a lot of those. And again, we're adding anything that we find out into our system. Trees, we're in real good shape with trees. As they come down, we're either repairing them or putting them on a list. So we're in good shape there. Let's see. Other than that, I'm all set on what we're doing now. As far as the future goes, we're going to be starting to paint the parade route soon, probably in May and June, getting that all ready. Finishing up on berm, repair, the sweeping. We also have a catch basin that we have to repair at 622 North Main Street, right by the Pride gas station. It's right by the entrance. So we're probably gonna do that. It's probably gonna be a 2-day job because it's pretty well deteriorated. So I talked to the people there at Pride and let them know what we're gonna be doing. So we're tentatively gonna do that next Tuesday and Wednesday. And that's all I have.
It might be worth mentioning the work we did at the high school sidewalk area as well.
Oh yes. There, right by the football stadium where the side entrance is, it's been deteriorated and eroding the past couple of years, so it's been an ongoing problem. So the guys put in maybe like 70 feet of sidewalk. They dug it out, they gravelled it, 2 layers of pavement, come out real nice. Once this weather dries up a little bit, we'll lumen seed it.
That'd be nice.
One other thing I want to add, as far as backflows go, Daryl started his first round of backflow inspections and testing. So he's going to town on that.
It fits in that spot well.
Oh yeah. And as we find like the new gas station, Tom put the meter in. He tells Daryl, there's a new backflow here. So they've been working, and he's been doing really well at it. So it's been going well.
And that's first for this year. He actually finished up the second half of last year, the second round of inspections. So,
okay.
So he's starting the cycle all over again.
Yeah, right.
This spring.
The first round.
Yeah.
Good.
All right. Anything else?
Oh, one other thing I was going to mention is on the new work order system. By the end of this week, all the foremen will have tablets and be using it. So we're trying to wean ourselves off the old system.
That seemed to be pretty good because I did a water disconnect last week with Mr. Pope, and he showed me it all on. And it seemed to be very easy for him to navigate through it, and then for something that was as old as that was, it was very accurate.
Yeah,
very accurate.
And now each of the tablets have the collector on them, and they'll be able to use the work order system. And for instance, today I had a list of catch basin inspections report I got from one of the guys, and if he labels on it needs a new top, I had probably 15 of them that he just wrote it needs attention. So I gave those to Rule today, and he went around, checked each basin out, took a picture on the collector, and you can put on there whether it's like 5 is the middle of the road and 1 needs immediate attention and so forth, and he categorized them as to how bad they are.
Yeah.
So they're on the system. So if you see a number 7 or 8, put that on the back burner. You see number 1 or 2, we got to address it right away.
Right.
So he did that, and now they're all in the system.
I've noticed some of the patches around the catch basins look a little neater, a little cleaner, and the water is actually going in them.
Yeah, they come out real well. We cold patched them, and now now we're putting the hot mix in there, and looking very nice.
Within the office, Mike Warner will be training. He's been working very closely with Sue Abad, because she does most of the work orders, kind of working through the system, finding out where we need to customize it or tweak it. And now that we're pretty confident with it, he'll be working to train Judy and Corey on the system later this week, so that all 3 of the staff people that are typically doing work orders on a regular basis will be familiar with it as well, and we'll eventually get off the paper system entirely.
I'm really excited about this.
I think it was, working with it firsthand like that last week with Mr. Pope,
and it's all, whatever we put on there is for everybody to see, and it's got like a trend that you can look at it. And there's one other thing is that we had a gentleman, one of our guys, we started tracking like all the trees in town. So now not only do you have catch basins and hydrants and signs and crosswalks, now we got trees. So now that's on there, I had to look at a couple of trees today, so I just put them on there, and so that they're all being tracked now too. It's just a great tool.
We have a lot more trees to then it'll be scary to figure out how many trees we actually own, but
Ooh, that'd be real scary.
we started in some of the newer subdivisions in Great Woods and some of the other places where, you know, it's clearly a street tree. We get into some of the older streets where the woods have kind of grown into the street.
Yeah,
It's a forest next to the road as opposed to a street tree. But,
yeah.
yeah.
But at least as I get a work order to look at a tree, I can actually put it on the collector and on the new system, so that that tree will be tracked.
And if we've had to go in and trim branches 3 years in a row, you know, we'll know that as opposed to having to remember, did we or didn't we, or when
right,
did we do
that's
it, or,
right,
yeah.
It's all good.
Okay. Anything else?
No, that's it. We take care of Mr. Sullivan.
Oh, we certainly did. As soon as we got that burn machine going, I had Mr. Polk replace the irrigation head.
Yep.
Chad put the berm in, bloomed and seeded the next day. He gave a nice thank you. He's very happy.
That's good. Maybe at the, beginning of next winter, we can put up some snow stakes or something so they know where the edge of the road is.
Absolutely.
Leave the edge where it belongs, so it's like that.
Just leave it there.
Yeah.
The sticks will be easier than the curb.
All right, schedule the next meeting for Wednesday, May 10th, 5 o'clock at the service building.
Yep.
Motion to adjourn.
Second motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.